Hello and welcome to the Humans Over Numbers podcast, the show that's willing to stand on its head to see the workplace from a new perspective.
We are brought to you by Milestones, makers and suppliers of the Beyond This Day, Small Wonders, and other keepsake gifts to recognize your employees' major life events outside of work as well as at work. You can request a complimentary no-cost, no-obligation sample at milestonescompany.com and see what impact it might make at your office.
I'm Felix Dusablon, hungry bookworm and aspiring polymath.
I'm Brooke Albert, new mommy and self-proclaimed nerd.
So we're here to talk about play at work.
So first, what would be play?
Okay, yeah, what would be play at work? So we're thinking maybe like not necessarily just go out and play. We're not talking about like causing pranks on your coworkers, though that might be something we'll end up discussing in some way. But we're talking about like doing improv sessions or going to a team building activities, which I know everyone hates team building, but like
we heard you groan. Okay.
Yeah, everyone hates team building. Like that's, oh my gosh, the amount of like hate everyone has for it.
Is it because it's awkward?
It's
like
awkward.
Forced.
It's so forced. It's like what I hate is mandatory play. Like when families have mandatory play nights, it's like no one wants that. Like why are everyone making you do this? What people like are like organic fun things, and we're like talking about, I mean, maybe you have to mandate it, you have to require it, otherwise I guess no one will come, but like ways to make it interesting. So we're talking about like team building activities, exercises that you can do that are play technically, and that will actually be beneficial to employees. So various things. So play at work being literal fun stuff that you can do at work that will contribute in some way to it.
So what I think, this could go a couple of ways, because I've been at companies that have like rewards. Here they have like and I guess most companies might have like an outreach group that kind of decides what kind of fun activities they'll do. They've had snow cone makers come in. We've had Halloween parties. We always have a Thanksgiving kind of deal. That was super Southern, sorry. Movie day, like I mentioned. So there are activities, but I'm thinking more like something that is fun, maybe takes the weight of work off a little bit, but most people could enjoy. Because when you pick a movie, you're not going to pick something that's interesting to everyone.
Movie picking is actually, it's such a difficult thing. I actually, my old roommates and I were so picky with movie making that eventually we designed a spreadsheet with an algorithm to track our ranking system of films to determine
what you should watch next.
Yeah, and it didn't work.
I just think, because there are some, like Peanut Butter Falcon, you guys were like, oh, that was great.
Yeah, I was like, that's a great movie, and I was like, I don't think anyone would want to watch it, and most days I wouldn't either. Like, it was a great movie, but...
You know what movie I recently watched and really, really enjoyed?
What?
The My Little Pony movie.
See, if someone showed that at work, I'd be like...
What is this? Right,
yes! Like, I'm out. Just... Like, I need I can't.
I'm taking a sick day. So, it's interesting, because even... or what was another... Like, I really enjoy B-movies. Like, okay. I am part of the reason Sharknado was successful and made 5.
I can't stand B-movies.
So, there was a movie... And there are B-movies that are so bad I can't stand it. Like, Velocipaster. Oh, yeah. Sounds as bad as you think it is from the name Velocipaster. Dude, it was on Amazon. I think we made it 45 minutes in.
Duh.
And I just looked at my husband and was like, I can't do it anymore. And if I can't do it, then how? You know? So I think movies are not maybe the best way to go for fun at work. But I think something like, bringing in a couple tabletop games. Board games are usually pretty fun. Now there's some stipulations to that. You got to be careful about playing things like spades or hearts.
Can you imagine diplomacy at work? No one.
Or
so terrible.
Something super niche like Sheriff of Nottingham, right? So I mean, you gotta, or like werewolf. You could maybe play at work, but even then, that gets kind of boring because if you're one of the people that goes out first, then what do you do for the next 30 minutes? You know.
Mm-hmm. I'm just like thinking of all the games that like do it just end it end all work like play Risk and then watch everyone like make their alliances and then like for the next like
6 months everyone's
like
mad
the
at each
quarter
other.
Everyone's like, I'm not helping them. They attacked Russia.
There are games I think that would be excellent like team building things that you don't have to invest a lot of time in.
No, definitely.
Like what did I say earlier? Superfight was a good one.
Oh yeah.
I mean, as long as you keep it workplace appropriate.
Okay, if you don't know what Superfight is, you want to explain? Because you've probably played it more recently. It's been a couple years since I played.
So essentially, it's a game where 2 individuals. I mean, everybody gets dealt cards at the same time, but 2 individuals have like a noun, like an object or a person, and they're equipped with some kind of special superpower or special item. And you have 2 people who will try to convince the rest of the group why their combination would succeed in a fight.
Right. So, like, one last times I played it, I think I got Godzilla with, I don't know, super strength or something, which was like, it's Godzilla, and then you give him super strength. The other person I was playing with was like Darth Vader with breathing problems. And it was like, what is this garbage? But we had to argue out in multiple rounds, like a debate style arguments.
Yeah.
Like it's actually most essentially debate rules. Like if you've ever done debate tournaments or no debate,
Yep.
It's actually built around the same premise. But instead of taking real or very interesting topics, you have to like you fight 2 things like Abraham Lincoln
with zombie killer.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorites that I've seen so far is somebody had himself. And the superpower was he could make a clone of himself, but every time he cloned himself, it would be half as smart as he was. But he could clone himself infinite times.
I mean, that actually... Oh, my goodness. I just want to argue that because I feel like you could use it so effectively.
The opponent was your mom in the Pope-mobile equipped with a flamethrower. Right.
Your mom might cancel out that. It's like those debates I used to do when I used to teach. I had a debate thing and I would talk about like rhetorical strategies, and then the one I loved was like ethos, which is arguments based on self, and I was like, that's literally your mom saying, it's over, I'm your mom, what I say goes. I
am the parent.
It's like trump card, nothing can be played after that.
So it was really great because one of the arguments, he was like, I've met your mother, she's a saint, there's no way she would fight an army of me, right? And it was just like, it's really entertaining. You can keep it pretty family friendly, so it could be workplace appropriate. I would just maybe suggest reading through the cards, and if anything you feel is a little sketchy, take it out.
There's a few sketchy cards.
Yeah, and there's expansions that have sketchier, right? And then because thanks to Cards Against Humanity,
it's super popular to do those sort of things.
So make it workplace appropriate, but I think it's a really great way to practice communication skills and what's a good word for convincing? Like having a convincing argument. Rhetoric, right? Yeah. It's a really great way to increase your improv skills. It's a really fun kind of relationship building activity because you get to see people's creativity and sort of like the way they'll pull things out of left field, like you would have never expected a 60-year-old woman to start arguing about kaiju. These giant monsters that are popular in Asian culture. So it's a really fun game, and I think it's a really great workplace activity. I'm not saying pull out Gloomhaven, which is like a multi-day, hour-long setup kind of thing. But
I'm a sucker for really big, complicated board games. Actually, I almost never play board games, but there's like the ones I like are the ridiculously complicated ones, and it's just. Like, I want to play, like, Axis and Allies.
Yeah.
Even though I don't want to commit to Axis and Allies. My goodness, that game's so long. So, like, my favorites are, like, the really fast, fun party games or the really complicated, hard group games.
I'm a puzzle person. But, like, a puzzle and, like, when I play video games, I like them to have complicated, well thought out movement puzzles or thought puzzles or, word puzzles. But when it comes to tabletop games, I'll pretty much play anything. There are some things that I look at and I'm like, no. There was one my husband tried to play one Thanksgiving with his family. They started at 8, 9 o'clock, and they were still playing at 3, and they still hadn't finished it. And I was super mad because I was like, I have not gone to sleep yet. I need you to just quit. You need to call it. I am ready to go to bed. You know what I mean? So definitely nothing like that. But I think something like...
Those are required tastes.
Yeah, but I think there's safe things. I'm not saying play Monopoly or Mousetrap, right? But I think there are games out there that can transfer into work-related skills. But I also think there's something to be said for doing something like a Pacman tournament.
Oh, yeah, just stuff that is... It's just team building. Everyone enjoys it.
Yeah, it's just like a fun lunch.
I know there's in like the military and stuff. It's like commiserating and like everyone suffers the same amount. But I think you can do the opposite with fun. Everyone has a certain amount of fun, and then they come together because of the fun.
Yeah, well, and I think there's something to be said about something like Pac-Man or Pong. Have a Pong tournament.
Also, that's a really good way to get some people who wouldn't know they had something in common to realize and be like, oh, like this happens all the time. I run into people. I'm like, oh, you're actually like a huge fan of this random fandom I'm part of.
Or when you've just discovered something and someone you've known for years has known it for years, and your mind is blown because this person's going to have this wealth of knowledge about it. I just think. Because so many things are like, and I see that there's a movement as people our age move into leadership positions. There is a movement towards things like that, like escape rooms are starting to become team building activities,
right?
Which are high pressure, high stress situations where there's communication involved, there's teamwork, people are delegating. You know what I mean? Like you can't micromanage an escape room or you'll fail.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So, management has a real chance to see what their management style looks like. Because if you have someone who's used to micromanaging in the office and they come in and try to do that in an escape room and you've got 4 people for a 5-people room, good luck. So, it's really... I'm glad to see that the workplace is moving to include things like this. And it's not just the old, let's have a catered lunch. Because what happens? People go down, they get their plate, they go back to work. There's no talking.
It's exactly actually what happens most of the time. Like you have your food and then with those sort of things, it's also awkward. It's like, am I supposed to go back to work now? Like even like sometimes we'll have food out for someone's birthday or whatever, and they're like, oh, come grab some food. I grab my food, and there's not really the space is not set up right or whatever. And I'm like, do I
stand here and eat?
Do I stand here and eat and try to like socialize with someone, or am I expected to go back and keep doing my work? Or do I just
pop in and say happy birthday and then grab a plate and leave? How bad does that look? So there's a lot of pressure on things like that.
Oh yeah, the social. I guess the games would probably also cause a lot of social like, what do you do with this social situation? But I don't think.
Yeah, but I mean, because I'm thinking like you might have older employees who are just completely uninterested in watching people play Pong, right?
Right.
But I think there is, this is a super generalization, but I think the older people would enjoy it too because there's a thing about nostalgia. There's a power in nostalgia. So when you take something from people's childhood and things like, the Atari and stuff are becoming more and more part of people's childhood as we get older, right? They're able to look back on it. There's an uninhibited joy that comes from childhood nostalgia, good things, right? That even if you don't enjoy the same thing or you don't have that sensation, you can feel that and you kind of respond to it. It kind of spreads. So, especially I think for older people who have kids or who've had kids, you just develop a sensation where like, you know what, this is not my thing, but I'm so happy seeing you happy that you know what I mean? It just, it keeps giving to itself. So I think it's just, is there a way for us to start to incorporate actual play with work?
I think there is. And I think there's so many avenues that people even considered that you could use in play. Like, so both of us, we play D&D. We play Dungeons and Dragons. And I don't usually play Dungeons and Dragons specifically. I play a Star Wars version. As I said, Star Wars is my fandom. Like, Star Wars is the one I will die on that hill. Like, I am in another plane of Star Wars. You don't even understand.
I can understand that, because when it comes to fantasy and sci-fi, like, the world of Toril.
Of Toril?
Yeah, is like it's my home. When you run into...
Which one is that?
It's the D&D
Okay,
it's
Twirl's
one
the
of
name. Okay.
yeah. Twirl is the planet. Farron's like one of
I
the
only know some of the
continents,
regions. I know like Icewind Dale and like
yeah. So
Waterdeep and
Twirl
some
is like
of
the
the other
world for
ones,
that,
and
but
the Underdeep and whatever.
it's when you it's really fun. It's like you said, when you run into someone who shares an interest you didn't know you had. It's like, I found my people. You know what I mean?
Actually, that's funny. I was just out of just curiosity to get the feel for someone. I have weird questions I ask people to like get a feel for what they're like. And my question yesterday, I was talking to someone. I was like, "What's your favorite IP?" And they were like, "My what?" And I was like, "IP, intellectual property." So IPs there. I was like, "This the reason I'm using this word is it's more general than just saying what's your favorite fandom, and it's also can be applied to people who don't have fandoms they prefer." But IP, so intellectual properties are anything like James Bond, Sherlock Holmes, everything on that name falls into it. Like, so Sherlock Holmes is an IP, but it includes the books. It includes the like young Sherlock Holmes books. It includes any video games. There are Sherlock Holmes videos. It includes all the shows, including
plays,
Sherlock,
yeah.
and the plays. Like, it's an entire IP. And like for me, I was like the reason I brought it up is there are multiple IPs that like every single thing I see of them. Like it doesn't matter what it is. Like Star Wars is one of those IPs, but like The Witcher is an IP that I'm like everything. I'm like I love the books. I love the games. I like the show. It's not my favorite of the three. It's the least high, but I still enjoy.
It's still enjoyable.
Yeah, and so like, what's your favorite IP? And that's like a great question to gauge some interesting like feedback and get some just a weird discussion going. But so the C in one of them was I used an example was D&D. I just didn't know that's what that IP was called. So I think it was funny that you used the example of an IP.
So D&D incorporates a lot, right? It's so much because it's a gaming system. It's not just it's
so
individual
that's why
stories.
I had to clarify with role playing. I was like, I play Star Wars. You play D&D.
Yeah, pretty much. And
you play 5th edition D&D. I play, I think 2nd edition Star Wars.
Yeah,
I don't actually remember the editions.
There's I don't like you could bring.
I mean, they're both Wizards of the Coast, but
yeah, and I think you could bring role playing games like that kind of into the office, but you're looking at several. You know what I mean? I don't think you could cut that down to an hour and actually have something.
No, but there are versions. What's it? Pathfinder is the one. There's like shorter, easier to understand D&D, and there are like super streamlined role playing games, and I know role playing is actually something people do as at a normal, like at work as a job experience thing. Like when I first got hired, they had me role play situations to like develop skills, and that's almost anywhere you work. Like when I was teaching, they had us role play with like bad students and what you do and stuff. And like when I used to be an RA, residence life for a college, and they would have policy violations, and I role played on both sides of that. So people use it as a training tool, but I think you could use it so much more, and you could do some funny things with that. And I think also that actually brings up another thought, is that gaming and stuff, those hobbies that we experience there, can contribute to skills which are useful in the workplace as well.
Yeah, I think there are some. Now, I think it would require maybe.
I'm not saying like go and require all the people.
Don't make everybody play.
Yeah,
but it might require some research if you're not just naturally in the space of looking into it. But I think it is something worth exploring. Just, I mean, even if you do a survey of your employees and 95% of them come back and they enjoy golf, and you go do Top Golf.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
I just think there's a lot to be said for bringing more play
into work. Yeah. Play hard, work hard.
It's a little difficult right now.
It is, but I think also that's I've seen a lot of people, and I hear really good feedback about it. They'll do like check-ins, but their check-ins will be fun, right? Mm. And so for like work, instead of like they'll have a coffee hour, like everyone just chats and drinks coffee because there's no way to do the normal socialization at work, the water cooler conversations. So they have to create some artificial one.
Yeah.
And what they do is a coffee hour. Logistically, that gets hard because when you have like one person talking, you can only do like one person talking at a time. I tried to do a social activity once on Zoom, and it just completely fell flat when there's more than like 4 people is like the max social activity you can do on Zoom.
I think so.
After that, because you have to take turns talking.
Yeah.
And so it's like one person talks.
And
all the other 20 people in the team are like.
We tried to do Easter this year online with some relatives because we're in North Carolina. My husband and I are from the Gulf Coast. So we don't have family up here. Okay. And if we're in the middle of COVID, we tried to do a Zoom meeting, and it was just like kids and the adults are talking, and it ended up just being like 3 of the aunts talking, and all of the other kids have like their stuff on mute, and they're just looking at each other like as couples, and they're like, so how much longer do we have to do this? Because, Jim just ran down the hallway. I'm pretty sure I hear Susan crying, and we aren't really participating. But you don't want to be the first one to step out of the family activity. It's not like you're at somebody's house and your kids are running around and you're just like, there are 10 adults in this house. Bug someone else, So it just, it's really interesting. I would like to see, because even your Grant Collins talk is like more people having the opportunity to work from home. I would like to see more activities that take place in the physical building where your employees show up, but it's not work. And we discussed this when we were talking about the meaning at work, right?
Right.
Sometimes, like, you need to have something else other than just what your job is.
Right.
To make it rewarding. And I think having play at work in whatever form you can come up with, there's so much that you can do. I mean, like a Halloween costume contest. I see people do cubicle decorating. I've done window decorating. What else have we done? Like cakewalks, which are kind of weird and nobody likes because some people are on a diet. But you're not, obviously, you're not going to please everybody. You're not going to get a 100% approval rate no matter what you do.
No matter what you do. You will never get that 100% approval rate. So do not even think that as one of your goals. Like, needs to be something that's fun and, like, you'll hit the majority. But, like, you can't please everybody. Don't even make that a goal.
Yeah.
Please most people.
Don't make that a goal.
Make this a good time.
Definitely.
Don't be like, I've got to do every
definitely
single person.
Put a little bit more effort into making something fun. Now, I have seen terrible ideas. There was one on Reddit where a lady decided they would have like an off-site day thing at an old plantation home. And she wanted to have a dinner that night with everyone in period dress. Yeah.
At a plantation home.
At a plantation home in period dress. So like pre-Civil War era kind of stuff. And she did have one employee. He showed up in... he was African American. He was like, I'm gonna roll with it. So he showed up in like a burlap kind of thing, and he was barefoot, and she's coming down the stairs in this beautiful ball gown, and he's sitting at the bottom of the stairs, and I was like, how oblivious did she have to be?
Yeah, to do that. So there are horrible ideas.
There are horrible ideas for fun at work.
Oh,
and it's like, okay, so that's why most people probably don't do it, because they want to CYA, but... I'm thinking about, like, there's actually earlier in COVID point, there was a YouTube group, comedy group. They're actually not YouTube naturally, but I love their YouTube videos. They're called Arms and Hog. They're Irish. They're an Irish comedy trio, and they had one video about, like, required, like, fun days, like, group fun days. And it was the funniest thing. They were like, oh, and the guy had, like, created, like, COVID fun day, and it was so atrocious, but it was, like, the most typical workplace thing on the planet. It like, I was, like, dying from it, because the guy's like, oh, that's just fine, I'll just turn off my mic, and then I'll have my own day, and they're like, it's required to have our mics on the whole time, and they're like, oh, come on. I usually do, like, during our morning meetings, I put myself on mute.
Well, yeah, I mute myself too, but that's partially because, like, I'm working from home. And
yeah, you type it and you do it.
Sometimes the baby's like, I'm like, oh, they don't need to hear that, interrupting their meeting.
Well, and I also have, and then there's dogs, and it's just like, I'm still kind of working.
And it's polite to mute yourself when you're on a group talk.
On a group call. That's what you do. You mute yourself.
So you don't hear doors and, like...
Yeah, or just people squeaky chairs and stuff. Yep. You know what I mean? It's different in person because you're able to pay more attention to the person
If you do not know that already, consider yourself educated. a group Zoom or a group call, you mute yourself. That's just how it is.
That's
like my brother
etiquette,
my other brother was doing he did his thesis this spring and he had to do it on Zoom. And so like he gave his thesis on Zoom, but like some people didn't mute it and it was like, come on, guys, like that's so distracting from and like really detrimental to his
it's
his
a little
presentation, his thesis.
It's demotivating.
It is. And so, man, it's like if you're trying to give a presentation and someone's standing there beside you, like blowing bubble gum or
just
something,
smacking.
like,
ugh.
like in that. Oh, that's another one. Like if you don't mind, if you're like and you're eating something, it's so much sound coming through on like any call. So
It's like Pooh Bear and Honey.
If you did not know that already. Now you do. There's the mute button. It's not usually very hard to find. It looks like a microphone. Mute yourself.
It usually lights up.
And like people understand it takes a second to say something because you have to unmute yourself. I think most people know this, but there are still some people who don't, and I don't know why it's not like no one's told them.
It's an effort that people don't want to put forth, but and that's totally fine. It's just one more thing that people don't want to deal with, which is totally cool. But I do.
Sorry, tangent, but that's a thing that like
it's your pet peeve of the day.
It's my pet peeve of the day. Yeah.
Pet peeve of the day. I think so. To circle back, just to kind of go over what we reviewed because we've been a little all over the place.
Yeah.
Playing at work can be so beneficial for so many people, and I think it reduces stress. I mean, puppy day. Like, people bring puppies in from the local shelter.
All the dopamine.
It just, all the puppers, just, you know what I mean? And it's like immediately you have this shot of oxytocin just playing with the puppy if you're a dog person and you're not allergic, you know?
Oh, yeah, that's, I said dopamine, yeah. Like, because you get so much dopamine, like petting cats and stuff, physical touch is such a high dopamine release. You want to make everyone happy. Yeah, puppy day makes everyone happy because if you don't know the science about this already, dopamine is what is your feel-good drug in your body. That's what feels good. Literally, that's what cocaine is. Like, I'm not kidding. Cocaine is when you take it, your body goes dopamine.
It initiates the dopamine
in
production,
pathways.
And I think it sensitizes your dopamine. That's a different.
It's physiology, but
move beyond cocaine.
That's why people say it feels good, right? That's what it is, and you get that from any physiological thing that you do that makes you happy. That's literally dopamine. Petting animals makes dopamine in your body. Physical touch makes dopamine. Physical touch is something you can't do right now. So I think a lot of people are on like dopamine lows. When COVID happened, they were like their dopamine like plummeted and they were all really sad because they didn't have their physical touch. Physical touch, love language people were not in the best place when COVID started. But anyways, you get your dopamine from puppy days. And dopamine can come from these games. It can come from all these sorts of stuff. So find ways to bump that dopamine at work will be very, very, very helpful. And
you can do that playing. And I just... I just want to encourage anyone who is in a job to suggest that. Now, there's, restaurant workers are a little harder to access that, but definitely a lot of offices could manage to implement something, once a quarter, once a year that is just soul boosting. It just brings life into people. I can't tell you how happy I am when I get to go home and, my baby goes to sleep and my husband and I are like, what do you want to do? I said, you want to play a game? We've got like 30 that we need to get through. And I'm so excited. We still haven't beat Ghost of Tsushima.
You guys take turns on that or what? I was like, that's single player.
So he plays and I watch. And then when he's not home on Friday afternoons, I usually try to play through it myself because we make different decisions and have different play styles. Yeah.
I was thinking I once took over someone else's character in like role-playing game, and the character just ended up with like basically schizophrenia because like not multiple personality disorder because like I played one very distinct way and then they played a very distinct way, and so the character was like flip-flopping and acting really crazy, and I was like,
yeah. So when we play co-op, we play co-op games, but it's such a It's a deep breath. It is a breath of fresh air after a long day. So I can't imagine if I came in here next week and they were like, hey, so once the restrictions and once COVID dies down, we're actually going to have like a game a gaming lunch hour, 2
I
hours.
would lose my mind.
Where we're going to
In
just
such a
bring
happy
in,
way.
a couple of different things for everybody to play. I would totally be down for bringing in, the Switch and doing Mario Kart, or bringing in some of the tabletop games that we have to play that are super easy to learn, and just, getting to see
so
people
many
being
fun, easy ones. Like, and if you want to feel sophisticated, there's there are plenty that are that way too. Like, that are higher end. Like, there's one that I love. It's literally Cards Against Humanity, but it's not. It's called Bards Dispense Profanity, and it is Shakespeare Cards Against Humanity. It's literally Shakespeare quotes pulled way out of context, and you play Cards Against Humanity with Shakespeare quotes.
That is pretty highbrow.
And like it looks really highbrow, and I remember the problem is I was playing with my Russian sister-in-law, and we were playing, and she was like, I don't know English well enough to know what this is. She's like, what is this?
You know what I love about you, Felix? Is that your family is French Canadian and you have a Russian sister-in-law.
Yeah.
She's
very sweet.
My family is still on the Gulf Coast, man. Not a whole lot of diversity there.
We have southern people in our family too, like a couple married people from the South, and so we have.
But that's still diversity. I got
everything.
nothing. Everybody that I'm related to and have been related to is from somewhere on the Gulf Coast in like a 3-hour drive. They're still there, which is fine. It's fun. It leads to this wonderful accent that pops out sometimes.
Yeah,
great.
It's nice. Yeah, I have the most weird. I mostly have like a flat American accent, but like it gets weird sometimes.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's for everybody. So, I think that about sums it up. I think we've covered it. And
I think we've covered the main point. Yeah, there's
Two
like another
points
thing
today.
I'm like, I think we could tangent into, or not relate this into, and like that's gamification. But I think gamification deserves its own day. Yeah. Like gamification at work and using that either as motivations, using that to make work fun. There's like gamification in it, all the things that are negative and all the positive, like that's a whole
I think that
thing.
would rely heavily
I think that needs
on
to be a whole conversation by itself.
Your employees being competitive. And
I'm
not competitive.
Yeah, I'm not either. I'm like really, really not competitive. And that's I think it's partially because like what you said about the French Canadians. No, I mean there are plenty of my family are very competitive, but
unless it involves
like
I am convinced the French and the Italians are pretty laid back unless it involves each other, and then there is just some kind of rivalry there I haven't been able to figure out yet, but it never fails. The French and the Italians, there's like
like the French and Italians hate each other.
I know,
right?
and I don't understand it.
They hate each other so much.
Anyways, that's
like in Europe they hate each other. They like, and it's both ways. They hate
it's
each
both
other.
ways. It's
they
so.
just hate each other
I don't know if
Europe.
anyone's a TV watcher, but the Beast challenge thing on Netflix. There's the French and the Italians are involved, and it was just so. It's so fun to watch.
They hate each other. When I was in Italy, they were like, we went to France with some Italians, and they were like smack talking France the whole time. And then when we went to Italy, they were like, they couldn't stop still smack talking French, and the French, when we were bumped into the French people, they were like smack talking the Italians and everyone else. That's because the Parisians are like,
Well, Parisians are their own breed, but I feel like it's almost like the football. Like a lot of times in Europe, you'll find these football. What do they call them?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Like the butt heads rivalries.
Like the football clubs hate each other. Like the
team,
like the
but
fans
it's two whole countries.
Yes, they are very competitive, specifically about football. They riot about football.
Well,
by football
I'm not
we
even
mean
worried
soccer.
about football. I mean, like, yeah. Sorry. I'm just like trying. Anyway.
Anyways,
topic for another day.
Competitiveness that's an element that we have to consider when talking about games and play at work. Is you're competitive people. Oh my goodness! Actually, now I'm thinking about like team activities of like we had game nights once when I was I was an RA, residence life, and we had a couple really competitive people, and they just ruined everything for everyone else. I was like, let them win. Just make them go away. Like get them onto the next tier of the tournament and get them out of here.
I think that's where you can avoid having something like Risk, right? Where a competitive person is going to go full Monty on their strategy, and then I think the biggest thing you'd have to worry about is sore losers. But since it's work related, hopefully that wouldn't come into it too much. I would hope the people involved would be at a point in their adult life where they could, I
hope so, but That's something you have to consider, and we do not have any answers to that one. But you do have to
That-
definitely consider competitiveness.
Well, and you know your employees better than anyone. And I'm always a fan of the, what do you call it? The survey. Nobody likes surveys, but I think if you're gonna make a decision,
But if you made a fun survey about what fun they're gonna do,
more people would be willing to
people would
participate.
yeah. Also, it might not work, but it's worth a shot.
I am an advocate. You know what? I think we revisit this topic in about a month and a half once COVID goes down. We will be the guinea pigs. We'll run that by management. I doubt it gets through.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. Well, it's been fun. I think we've had some value that we figured out. I think there's some value, definitely. Like, and if nothing else, try it. Like, what happens if it goes wrong?
A lawsuit.
Okay, that's like worst case scenario. Not that bad.
It won't be that bad, especially if you do your due diligence and you educate and you communicate. As with anything, I think there is an opportunity for success. It's a huge learning curve. Not a huge learning curve, but it's a learning event. You'll get to know your employees more. I think you'll see the impact that it makes. And I think your employees will just enjoy it.
Yeah, I think so too. So, worth a shot. And we'll see you another time. Thank you for listening to the Humans Over Numbers podcast, brought to you by Milestones. If you found it informative or entertaining, please like, subscribe, or leave a comment or review. I'm your host, Felix, and until next time.